妙法蓮華経南無妙法蓮華経。And there we are. Looks like we have a full battery. Hello everyone. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Nice to see you all again. I know it's been a little while since I posted the last video. I apologize for the delay. Life. Need I say more? We have a lot to cover. I have shared my insights and talks on the Nichiren's Gosho for a while now. There's still a lot more to cover, and now we're in the midst of part 2 of the opening of the eyes. And although there may be, this is one of the long Gosho, or treatises as it's often called. Treatise simply because of the many Gosho, the many letters that Nichiren wrote. Some were especially, what's the word I want to use? Densely layered with scholarship. So much so that I remember when I first started studying Nichiren's Gosho, I would start reading part of the way through and give up. I mean, just the sheer volume of information seems somewhat moving at a crawl's pace, and just not giving me that immediate satisfaction we all want as human beings, especially in our cultures today, the way we're raised, the way information just barrages us all the time. To slog through so many volumes of information, it is overwhelming. So that was great motivation for me to try to do these things. I'm not, as you well know by now, a concise speaker. It's just my hope that if I can interject my own insight and perspective and perceptions in these Gosho, now that I've practiced some 40 years, that I can at least begin to open avenues of insight and understanding in your own practice, for your own rereading and perceptions of your own. Because, as I always say, this isn't my enlightenment, it's yours. This isn't Nichiren's enlightenment, it's yours. We have these great bodhisattva like Nichiren and Tendai and Nagarjuna and so on, who've deeply understood the simple complexity, or the complex simplicity of Shakyamuni's teaching and his awakening. And it is somewhat a testament to our perseverance as Buddhists to constantly search out insight, deeper knowledge, deeper understanding, at the same time developing our conviction that yes, this makes sense. This is the answer, my answer. Ultimately, that's what it's all about, is your own sense, my answer. Because my answer, Sylvain's answer, is not your answer. But by sharing as many versions and ideas and insights of my own perceptions as I read through these teachings, I hope maybe to spark insights of your own. So, although this may take a lot of time, I have it to give. And this is the Bodhisattva practice, is it not? So, thank you for allowing me into your perception. And with that, I believe we left off at, therefore they understood that he must have attained enlightenment in the far distant past. And we'll go on to the next paragraph. In addition, the great bodhisattvas, as numerous as the dust particles of 1,000 worlds, appeared, rising up out of the ground. Even the universal worthy and Manjushri, who had been regarded as the leading disciples of Shakyamuni, could not compare themselves to them. The great bodhisattvas present in the assemblies described in the sutras of the flower garland, corrected equal, and wisdom periods, and the treasure tower chapter of the Lotus Sutra itself, or the Vajrasattva, and the rest of the 16 great bodhisattvas of the Madhavajana and the Diamond Crown Sutras, when compared with these newly arrived bodhisattvas, seemed like a pack of apes or monkeys, with the new bodhisattvas appearing among them like so many chakras. It was as though great ministers of court had mingled with humble mountain folk. Even Maitreya, who was to be the next Buddha after Shakyamuni, was perplexed by them, to say nothing of the lesser personages in the assembly. Wow. So, in other sutras, and certainly in many sects of Buddhism even today, they long for the appearance of Maitreya, the next Buddha, supposed to appear 10,000 years after. You'll hear all kinds of different estimations on that. But certainly Maitreya is not a foreign name to those who have been studying Buddhism, right? I want you to take careful note, though, of this paragraph, is that these bodhisattvas who rise from the earth, this is you and I. We are the bodhisattvas rising from the earth. We are the newborn. We are the future generations addressed in this Lotus Sutra thousands of years ago. And we, in the words of Shakyamuni in the Lotus Sutra, appear to Maitreya, the future Buddha, as far superior. Ingest that for a moment. You know, I'm constantly answering questions about Buddhism having to do with what do you worship, who do you worship, who's greater, this bodhisattva, that Buddha, or this Buddha, that Buddha, which Buddha came before, which Buddha came. It's irrelevant because it misses the point. That Buddha, by whatever name, is a manifestation of perception of the mind. And we, you and I of the modern era, students of Buddhism, are the Sangha. We are the communicative mass, the shared implementation of mental perception which can rise to the level of Buddha. It's not a person. It is we. It is humanity. And this goal of Buddha is something that humanity has yet persisted at attaining. Small portions, individuals, groups have tried and maintained over thousands of years to attain this level of awakening, enlightened humanity. And still we struggle. It's an individual battle first. And that's what Buddhism is about. So, even Maitreya, who was to be the next Buddha after Shakyamuni, was perplexed by them, us, to say nothing of the lesser personages in the assembly. Lesser personages, notice not lesser people, lesser personages. In other words, conceive of people's mental states. Give them names, those are personages. But they're not people, right? They're types of understanding. You have to look and read on the scholarship of Buddhism with that lens. That this is a mental experiment. That this is a way of delving into the functions of the human mind. Yours individually, but yours as part of a greater whole. That is part of the experience of life itself. Among these great bodhisattvas, as numerous as the dust particles of 1,000 worlds, what could that mean? Innumerable, right? There were 4 great sages called superior practices, boundless practices, pure practices, and firmly established practices. Were these 4 specific individuals? Well, in the context of the teaching, they have to be, because this is an expedient means. This is a way of explaining something in order for most to understand. This is a universal teaching, right? But understand, these are types of practice. These are types of bodhisattva practice. Superior practice, boundless practice, pure practice, firmly established practice. Aren't these more adjectives than they are actual things? Right? In the presence of these 4, the other bodhisattvas, suspended in the air or seated on Eagle Peak, could not bear to gaze on them face to face or begin to fathom their dignity. In other words, these are very difficult accomplishments. So difficult that it's hard to wrap your head around them, hard to gaze them face to face as equal. Even the 4 bodhisattvas of the Flower Garland Sutra, the 4 bodhisattvas of the Mahavajrana Sutra, or the 16 great bodhisattvas of the Diamond Crown Sutra, when in the presence of these 4, were like bleary-eyed men trying to peer at the sun, or like humble fishermen appearing in the audience before the emperor. These 4 were like Dai Kung Huang and the others of the 4 sages of ancient China, who towered above the multitude. They were like the 4 white-haired elders of Mount Shang, who assisted Emperor Hui. Solemn, dignified, they were beings of great and lofty stature. Aside from Shakyamuni, many treasures, and the emanations of Shakyamuni from the 10 directions, they were worthy of being good friends upon whom all beings could rely. Let's take that apart. The accomplishment of these bodhisattvas, this level of practice, far exceeds the level of the highest levels of practice of these earlier sutras. Once again, compounding the scholarship that in the Lotus we're discussing a level of practice, a level of understanding, a level of insight and practice far ahead of the previous teachings. This now stands on the shoulders and heads of those teachings. And even compared to Shakyamuni himself, the founder, the Buddha, if you will, and all of his emanations, here again, we're again specifically told that all of these other Buddhas that are discussed in the sutras are simply emanations of Shakyamuni. In other words, inventions of states of mind, states of accomplishment, states of awakening given by Shakyamuni Buddha. Since the time Shakyamuni Buddha was a crown prince, and during the 42 years since he gained enlightenment at the age of 30 up until this gathering on Eagle Peak, I have known all the bodhisattvas of this world and all the great bodhisattvas who have come from the worlds of the 10 directions to attend the assemblies. Moreover, I have visited the pure and impure lands of the 10 directions, sometimes as the Buddha's emissary, and other times on my own initiative, and I have become acquainted with all great bodhisattvas of those various lands. As for these great bodhisattvas who have appeared from the earth, what kind of Buddha is their teacher? Surely he must have been a Buddha who is incomparably superior to Shakyamuni. Many treasures, and the emanations of Buddhas from the 10 directions. From the fury of the rain, we can judge the greatness of the dragon that caused it to fall. From the size of the lotus flower, we can tell the depth of the pond that the flower of the lotus flower. We can tell the depth of the pond that produced it. Now, from what land did these great bodhisattvas come? What Buddha did they follow? And what great teaching have they practiced? So it speaks of this in past tense because it's in the expedient means, the expedient teaching, the skillful teaching of the Lotus within this ceremony at the time. But the bodhisattvas of the earth, again, are us thousands of years later. What Buddha did we follow? Buddha, right? But he's still teaching people who don't understand that there is yet to be greater, deeper insight to be achieved. There is yet to be people of greater capacity to understand who will inculcate this Buddha mind, this Buddha mindset, this understanding of the preciousness of life at a level they have yet to reach. Thus did Bodhisattva Maitreya wonder to himself, becoming so puzzled that he was unable to utter a sound. But perhaps through the Buddha's power, he was at last able to put his doubts into words, saying, "Immeasurable thousands, 10,000s, millions, a great host of bodhisattvas, such as was never seen in the past. This host of bodhisattvas with their great dignity, virtue, and diligence. Who preached the law for them? Who taught and converted them and brought them to this? Under whom did they first set their minds on enlightenment? What Buddha's law do they praise and proclaim? World-honored one, from times past I have seen nothing like this. I beg you to tell me where they came from, the name of the land. I have constantly journeyed from land to land, but never have I seen such a thing. In this whole multitude there is not one person that I know. Suddenly they have come up from the earth. I beg you to explain the cause." Paraphrasing Maitreya's statement, Tendai comments, hundreds of years later, "Since the time of the Buddha's enlightenment at the place of meditation, Buddha Gaya, up until the present gathering, great bodhisattvas unceasingly came from the worlds in the 10 directions to attend the various assemblies. Their numbers are unlimited, but I, with the wisdom and power appropriate to the next Buddha, have been able to see and know every single one of them. And yet, among the newly arrived multitude, I do not know a single person. This in spite of the fact that I have traveled the 10 directions, have served the various Buddhas, and am well known among their audiences." That was Tendai's comment on that area of the Lotus. Miao Lo also comments, "Wise men can perceive the cause of things, as snakes know the way of snakes." The meaning of these passages of scripture and commentary is perfectly clear. This is Nichiren now. In effect, from the time of Shakyamuni's enlightenment up until the next or the present assembly on Eagle Peak, in this land and in all the lands of the 10 directions, Bodhisattvas Maitreya had never seen or heard of these bodhisattvas who came from the earth. The Buddha, replying to Maitreya's doubts, said, quote, "Ajita, these bodhisattvas whom you have never seen before in the past, when I had attained supreme perfect enlightenment in this Saha world, I converted and guided these bodhisattvas, trained their minds, and caused them to develop a longing for the way." So now this is confusing to the average reader, right? Because we're playing with future and past tense here. So the Buddha addresses Maitreya to give him confidence that these new personages that he's never seen are actually imbued with the Buddha wisdom that he is just now learning about. See, I hope just saying that, I hope you're hearing what I'm saying, is that this is again expedient means. Is that Maitreya, calm down. No, you don't know these people. They're new to you. But the Buddha which they seek, the Buddha mind, the Buddha awakening, enlightenment, isn't new. See, he's still dealing at this point in the Lotus Sutra with the idea that Buddha-ness, Buddha suchness, is innate. It is an integral part of all of life. So with the bodhisattvas of the earth, which you and I represent, he is saying that they don't need a new teacher. They don't need a new guide. The stuff of Buddha-ness, the suchness of awakening, is there. It's integral. He's still using himself as a human teacher as a device, but he's slipping from the don't follow me, which he's said many times. Follow the teaching, follow the meaning, because if you do that, you'll find that this is something innate. It's just concealed from your human veils of understanding, your cravings, your desires, your satiation of immediate gratification. It's in the way of you seeing what's already there right before you, like colored lenses. He also said, quote, "When I was in the vicinity of the city of Gaia, seated beneath the Bodhi tree, I attained the highest, the correct enlightenment, and turned the wheel of the unsurpassed law." He started teaching. "Thereafter I taught and converted them and caused them for the first time to set their minds on the way." Set their minds on the way. When you set someone's mind on the way, they're not inventing anything. They're just deciding to follow a path that's already extant. It's all in the language. If you really wrestle your preconceptions away and don't get hooked into the words, you can begin to see the elegance of this. Now, all of them dwell in the stage of non-regression. Ever since the long distance past, I have been teaching and converting this multitude. In other words, this started way before you knew me as a human. This has been going on. But Maitreya and the other great bodhisattvas were further perplexed by these words of the Buddha. They're still hooked into, but you're standing here, you're teaching us. How could they know this before your existence? How could this go to the multiple past? There must be multiple lifetimes, right? There we go. We start getting into the magical thinking. When the Buddha preached the Flower Garland Sutra, Dharma, Wisdom, and countless other great bodhisattvas appeared in the assembly. Maitreya and the others wondered who they could be. But the Buddha said, "They are my good friends." And they thought, this must be true. Later, when the Buddha preached the Great Collection Sutras at the Great Treasure Chamber and the larger Wisdom Sutra at the White Heron Lake, great bodhisattvas appeared in the assembly, and Maitreya and the others supposed that they were good friends of the Buddha. But these great bodhisattvas who had newly appeared out of the earth looked incomparably more venerable than those earlier bodhisattvas. One might conclude that they were the teachers of Shakyamuni Buddha. And yet the Buddha had, quote, caused them for the first time to set their minds on the way, end quote, and when they were still immature, had converted them and made them his disciples. It was this that Maitreya and the others found so profoundly perplexing. They still weren't understanding that Buddha, suchness, awakening, enlightenment is inherent in life. They were still, you could say it's a vanity. That's the human condition, right? No, we worked hard to reach this point. We worked hard to understand this, and you taught us how to get there. How could these newbies suddenly have it better than us? How could they know it more than we do? We learned it from you, the teacher. Wrong. Shakyamuni Buddha brought them to understand, to raise their capacity, to see what was already there, but they still not quite there yet, are they? We're at the 25-minute mark. Prince Shotoku of Japan was the son of Emperor Yomei, the 32nd sovereign. When he was 6 years old, elderly men came to Japan from the states of Pakchi, Korea, and Koguryo in Korea, and from the land of China. The 6-year-old prince thereupon exclaimed, "These are my disciples." And the old men in their turn pressed their palms together in reverence and said, "You are our teacher." This was a strange happening indeed. There is a similar story found in the secular work. According to this work, a man was walking along a road when he saw on the roadside a young man of about 32 who was beating an old man about 80. When he asked the reason, the young man had replied, "This old man is my son." Bodhisattva Maitreya, continuing to doubt, said, quote, "World-honored one, when the thus come one was crowned prince, you left the place of the Shakyas and sat in the place of the palace of the Shakyas and sat in the place of meditation, not far from the city of Gaya. And there you attained supreme perfect enlightenment. Barely 40 years or more have passed since then. World-honored one, how is it that in this short time you have accomplished so much work as a Buddha?" See, they're still stuck, right? In their perception of everything being in their world. The various bodhisattvas who had attained the numerous assemblies held in the some years since the Buddha preached the Flower Garland Sutra had raised doubts at each assembly, asking the Buddha to dispel these doubts for the benefit of the multitude. But this present doubt was the greatest doubt of all. It surpassed even the doubt entertained by the Great Adornment and the others of the 80,000 bodhisattvas described in the Immeasurable Meanings Sutra, when the Buddha, after declaring in the previous 40-some years of his teachings that enlightenment was something that required countless kalpas to attain, now announced that it could be attained quickly. And I think that's a pretty good spot for us to stop, so I'm going to stop there. This is getting meaty. I look forward to the next one. Thank you so much. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. If you can at all, please support me on Patreon or go to paypal.me/Sifu Sylvain and help support my school. Thank you so much.